2 little girls, 1 billionaire, and a single mother who thought she left the past behind. But when a simple trip to an amusement park uncovers a life-altering connection, everything changes. This is the kind of story that'll stay with you long after it ends. Before we dive into the story, comment below where you're watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. Mary clutched her worn teddy bear as she pressed her small nose against the iron gate of Sunridge Park, the most famous amusement park in Portwell, Illinois. Children's Day was in full swing, with colorful balloons dancing in the crisp autumn breeze and the whimsical melody of carousel music floating through the air. 9-year-old Mary watched other kids rushing inside with their parents, their faces lit with excitement. Her faded yellow dress, a hand-me-down from a local shelter, fluttered around her knees as she stood on tiptoe, trying to catch glimpses of the magical rides that twirled and soared beyond the entrance. "Just a few more minutes, sweetheart," her mother Rachel had said before hurrying to a nearby vendor. "I'll get us some popcorn with the last few dollars. Then we can at least enjoy the view from here." Rachel's face had that familiar mix of quiet strength and sadness, the kind that came from being a single mother doing everything she could. Since losing her job at the garment factory 4 months earlier, she'd been cleaning homes and washing dishes at a diner just to afford their small basement apartment. Mary nodded, pretending not to mind staying outside. She was good at pretending. But as her mother walked away, the laughter from inside the park grew louder, more tempting. Without even thinking, Mary began drifting along the fence, farther from where Rachel had left her. That's when she saw them, a man and a little girl standing in the VIP line. But it wasn't the tall, sharply dressed man that made Mary stop in her tracks. It was the girl beside him, holding his hand. She wore a spotless blue dress with a silky white sash. Her dark brown curls framed her face in perfect spirals, tied back with a matching ribbon. She laughed at something the man had said, revealing a gap where her front tooth used to be, just like Mary's. Mary stepped closer, heart pounding. It was like looking into a different version of herself. A parallel life. The same heart-shaped face. The same button nose. The same wide hazel eyes framed by long lashes. Even the tiny birthmark above the right eyebrow. Mary instinctively touched her own. Before she could think twice, Mary had slipped through a break in the crowd and was walking toward them. The man was checking his sleek watch, speaking into his phone with an air of authority. His voice was low, calm, but carried weight. 25% is final, Carter. The board meets Monday. I want it wrapped up by then. He paused as the little girl tugged at his arm and pointed to a towering roller coaster. "I'll call you back," he said, then ended the call and smiled down at her. "Yes, Lily, we'll ride that one first, I promise." Mary stood there, gripping her teddy bear tighter. She took a breath, then spoke before she lost her nerve. "Hi, sir," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "Why does your daughter look exactly like me?" The man's head snapped up. His piercing blue eyes widened as they landed on her. The phone he'd been about to pocket slipped from his hand and hit the ground. Lily turned too, eyes wide, mouth forming a perfect "oh." "Daddy," she whispered, tugging on his sleeve more urgently. "She looks like me." Nathan Cole, CEO of Cole Enterprises and one of the country's most influential executives, stood frozen, possibly for the first time in his life. He looked from Mary to Lily, then back again. Who are you?" he finally asked, his voice raspier than before. "Where are your parents?" "My name is Mary Wilson," she said politely. "My mom went to get us popcorn." She gestured vaguely behind her. "We can't go in the park today, but she said we could watch from outside." Nathan's face drained of color. "Wilson?" he echoed. "What's your mom's name?" "Rachel," Mary replied, sensing something was very strange. He looked stunned, like he'd seen a ghost. Lily leaned closer to Mary, studying her as if she were trying to solve a mystery. "You have the same mark as me," she said, tapping her own eyebrow. "And your tooth is missing too." The similarities were impossible to dismiss. Nathan knelt, now at their eye level. A few people in line began to whisper, but he paid them no mind. "Mary," he said softly, "how old are you?" "I'm 9, she answered. "My birthday's in January, on the 15th. Nathan inhaled sharply. "January 15th, he murmured, more to himself than to her. Before Nathan could say more, a voice rang out over the crowd, panicked and desperate. "Mary, Mary, where are you?" Rachel Wilson pushed through the clusters of people, eyes scanning frantically until she spotted her daughter. Relief washed over her face. "Oh, thank goodness. Don't ever wander off like that again, you scared me half to, eh?" Her words caught in her throat as she took in the scene before her. Her daughter, standing beside a girl who looked like her mirror image. And between them a man Rachel hadn't seen in nearly a decade. "Nathan," she breathed. The paper bag of popcorn slipped from her hand, scattering across the pavement. "Rachel." His voice was quiet, stunned, as he slowly stood to his full height, eyes locked on hers. The world seemed to still around them. 9 years of silence stretched between them like a canyon. Lily looked confused. Mary stepped closer to her mother, sensing the strange energy in the air. "You two know each other?" Lily asked, breaking the moment. Nathan cleared his throat, trying to compose himself. "We were friends. A long time ago." Rachel gave a short, bitter laugh. "Friends? That's what we're calling it now." His expression tensed, then softened again as his eyes shifted back to Mary. "I think we have some very important things to talk about." "We have nothing to talk about," Rachel replied sharply, taking Mary's hand. "Come on, sweetheart. We're leaving." "But Mom," Mary said, her eyes wide. "She looks just like me." Rachel's eyes filled with tears as she glanced between the two girls. "I know, baby," she whispered. "I know." As she turned to walk away, Nathan reached out, barely brushing her arm. "Rachel, please. 9 years is long enough. Don't walk away again." Lily tugged on his jacket. "Daddy, can they come in the park with us? Please? I want to talk to her. She has a teddy bear like the one I used to have." The weight between the adults shifted slightly at the innocent plea. Nathan looked down at his daughter, then at Mary, still holding that bear, her face a mix of wonder and worry. "Yes," he said, his voice firm. "That's a great idea, Lily." He turned to Rachel, his gaze steady but imploring. "Come with us. For the girls." Rachel hesitated, her emotions at war. Years of hurt versus the hope shining in her daughter's eyes. Behind them, the Ferris wheel turned slowly against the blue sky, lifting happy families up toward the clouds. A picture of the carefree childhood Mary had rarely known. "Please, Mom." Mary's voice was quiet, trembling with hope. "It's Children's Day." Rachel looked at her daughter, then at the man she had once loved. The man who had no idea he had a daughter. Or had he? Questions swirled through her mind like leaves in a storm. "Fine," she said at last. "Just for today." Nathan nodded and led the small group through the gates of Sunridge Park, bypassing the lines with a simple nod to the staff, who recognized him instantly. Mary's eyes went wide as she stepped inside the park she'd only dreamed of. Everything felt brighter on the inside. The sounds, the colors, the very air itself charged with magic. "What would you both like to do first?" Nathan asked, addressing both girls, though his attention kept drifting toward Rachel, who stayed cautiously behind. "The carousel," Lily shouted. "The carousel, please," Mary whispered at the same time. Their matching answers hung in the air. Another detail that made Nathan's brow furrow slightly. Rachel clutched her purse like a lifeline, eyes scanning the crowd as though she might change her mind and run. "The carousel it is," Nathan said with a practiced cheerfulness, leading them to the park's ornate merry-go-round at its center. As the girls ran ahead, Nathan walked beside Rachel. 9 years, he said quietly. "You disappeared without a word." Rachel didn't look at him. "You made your choice pretty clear, Nathan." "What choice?" "You left a note saying you needed time, then vanished." "I tried to find you. I hired investigators, Rachel. I searched everywhere." "Did your wife help with the search?" she asked coldly. Nathan stopped walking. Rachel halted too. "What are you talking about? I wasn't married." "Don't lie to me," she said, keeping her voice low as she watched the girls choose their carousel horses. "I saw the announcement. Nathan Cole to wed heiress Danielle Morgan. 2 weeks after you said you needed space to think." Confusion spread across Nathan's face. "That announcement was premature. My father arranged the engagement without telling me. I ended it the next day." He looked at her intently. "Is that why you left?" Without asking if any of it was true. The careful story Rachel had built around her pain began to unravel. For nearly a decade, she'd carried her anger like a shield, but now cracks appeared. "You expect me to believe that?" she said bitterly. "You who managed every detail of your business and your life back then. Nothing happened without your say-so." "Not back then," Nathan replied, his voice lower now, burdened with memory. My father was still in charge. He had plans for me, for the company, for my future. He even tried to dictate who I should marry. He ran a hand through his neatly combed hair, musing it for the first time. When I refused Danielle, he threatened to cut me off. I walked away from everything. Because I was looking for you. The cheerful carousel music played around them, completely unaware of the tension vibrating between the adults. Mary and Lily were now sitting on twin white horses, laughing as they rose and fell with the ride's rhythm. Even if what you're saying is true, Rachel said, her voice a little less sharp, that was a lifetime ago. Nathan's eyes moved to Mary. Is it? She's 9. Born in January. His gaze bore into her. That's 9 months after you left. Rachel didn't answer, she didn't have to. Is she mine? He asked, though the answer was already in his eyes. Rachel hesitated, then gave a soft, defeated nod. She has your mother's eyes, she said. And the same birthmark your grandmother had. I saw it once in that old family photo album you used to show me. Remember? Nathan closed his eyes, taking in what he already knew deep down from the moment he saw Mary. When he opened them again, emotion battled within him, disbelief, grief, awe, and something dangerously close to hope. You kept my daughter from me for 9 years, he said quietly but with weight behind each word. I thought you'd chosen your perfect society life. Your perfect society wife, Rachel said, her voice defensive. I was just a scholarship kid from the wrong part of town. Your father made sure I understood I didn't belong. My father died 3 years ago, Nathan said. Heart attack. Right in the middle of a board meeting. His last words to me were that he'd been wrong about a lot of things. He looked toward Lily, who was waving down at him as her horse circled past. 2 years before that, I married Catherine. She was kind. Brilliant. She was one of the lawyers who worked on a major acquisition for the company. We were happy. He paused, the smile fading. But she died giving birth to Lily. Rachel's hand flew to her mouth. Nathan. I didn't. Don't, he cut in gently. Don't say you're sorry. Just tell me why you never tried again. Not once. Not after you knew about Mary. The carousel began to slow, the ride nearing its end. Rachel rushed her words, knowing their moment alone was about to be over. I did try. When Mary was 2, I called your office. Your assistant said you were on your honeymoon. She looked down. I hung up. She wrapped her arms around herself as if bracing for judgment. After that, I convinced myself it was better not to tell you. That you had your perfect life and Mary was better off without the hurt. Nathan shook his head, eyes narrowed in pain. That was a choice you made, not me. I never got the chance to explain. Never even knew. The carousel came to a stop and 2 excited girls ran toward them, flushed, laughing, full of life. Can we go on the teacups next? Lily asked, grabbing Nathan's hand. No, bumper cars. Mary chimed in, then looked up at Rachel. Can we, Mom? Rachel smiled, trying to hide the war of emotion inside her. Of course, sweetheart. Why don't we do both? Nathan offered, his voice now slipping back into warmth with practiced ease. Teacups first, then bumper cars. As they walked together toward the teacups, Mary's small hand slipped into Nathan's. The gesture was unconscious and it nearly undid him. For the first time, he was holding both of his daughter's hands. Even if only one of them knew it. You're really tall, Mary said, peering up at him. My mom says I'm tall for my age too. That runs in my family, Nathan replied before he could stop himself. Rachel shot him a subtle warning look over Mary's head, but it was too late. What do you mean? Mary asked, narrowing her eyes slightly. Lily, ever observant, had caught the shift in tone too. Are we related? She asked directly, looking between them. Is that why we look the same? Nathan and Rachel exchanged a brief, panicked glance. They weren't ready for this conversation, especially not in the middle of Sunridge Park. It's complicated, Nathan said, buying time. We were very close friends once, Rachel added, her voice softer now. Lily crossed her arms. That doesn't explain why we have the same face. As they reached the line for the teacups, Nathan's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and frowned. I have to take this, it's the Tokyo deal, he said, stepping aside. Instantly, his tone changed as the CEO version of him snapped into place. Now alone with the girls, Rachel found herself under 2 pairs of nearly identical, inquisitive eyes. Are you my dad's girlfriend from before? Lily asked point blank. Mary looked up, startled. Rachel felt cornered. Her carefully controlled reality was slipping fast. Lily, I think those are questions your father should answer. I don't have a dad, Mary said simply, though a small tremble in her voice betrayed her. Everyone has a dad, Lily replied with childlike logic. He just might not be around. Just then, Nathan returned, slipping his phone into his pocket. He instantly sensed the tension. Everything okay? He asked. I think, Rachel said carefully, we need to talk. Properly. Somewhere private. My office is nearby, Nathan offered. It's quiet and the girls can play in the executive lounge. There's an indoor playground. Rachel checked her watch. I have a cleaning job at 5. I'll take care of it, Nathan said without hesitation. I don't want your charity, she snapped quietly, making sure the girls couldn't hear. His expression tightened. It's not charity. It's making time to talk about our daughter. That phrase, our daughter, made Rachel glance at Mary, who was now comparing shoelaces with Lily, both girls deep in their own little world. Rachel exhaled. Fine. But only for an hour. Nathan nodded and led them toward the park's exit. His sleek black Bentley was already waiting at the curb, the driver stepping out to open the door. Mary's eyes grew wide. We're going in that, she whispered to her mom. Just this once, Rachel replied, helping her into the plush interior. The ride to Cole Plaza, Nathan's towering headquarters in downtown Portwell, took less than 15 minutes, but it felt far longer. The girls chatted away in the back seat, laughing and swapping favorite colors and animal facts as if they'd known each other for years. Up front, silence hung between the adults. Rachel stared out the window, watching the landscape change from the humble neighborhoods she knew to the polished, glass-and-steel skyline that had once felt like a dream. Or a threat. Nothing's changed, she muttered under her breath as the car approached the base of Cole Plaza. Everything has, Nathan countered quietly. Inside the marble lobby, security guards straightened the moment they saw Nathan. He offered them a polite nod, then led the group to the executive elevator, which opened directly into a modern, sunlit lounge. A friendly woman in her 50s looked up from her desk. Mr. Cole and Miss Lily. What a surprise on a Saturday. Hi, Mrs. Lang, Nathan said. This is Rachel and Mary Wilson. There are special guests today. Could you show the girls the play area? Mrs. Lang's eyes briefly widened at the sight of Mary, but she quickly composed herself. Of course. Girls, would you like to see the indoor treehouse? It even has a rope bridge. Lily turned to Mary, beaming. It's awesome. Come on. The girls scampered off with Mrs. Lang, voices echoing down the hallway. Nathan led Rachel into his corner office, minimalist, sharp-lined, and flooded with natural light from floor-to-ceiling windows. A single photo on the desk showed Lily on a swing, laughing midair. You've done well, Rachel said, running her hand along the sleek edge of the desk. I've built everything, Nathan replied, loosening his tie. But none of it matters as much as what I lost. You. And Mary. Rachel turned to him. Would it have mattered? Your father made it perfectly clear I was beneath you. The maid's daughter. The girl on scholarship. My father didn't get to make my life choices, Nathan said, a flicker of frustration in his voice. After you left, I cut ties with him. Lived off my savings. I started a small consulting firm from nothing. He let that hang for a beat. It only became successful years later. That's when he asked me to come back to Cole Enterprises. Rachel sank into one of the office chairs, her posture exhausted. I didn't know any of that. How could you? Nathan said, still standing. You changed your number. Disappeared. No address. No trace. Because I was scared, Rachel said quietly. I was 23, alone, pregnant. When I saw the announcement of your engagement, I broke. Then when I finally called years later and was told you were on your honeymoon, she wrapped her arms around herself, her voice trembling. I told myself you'd moved on, that Mary didn't need a father who had chosen wealth over love. I married Catherine 4 years after you left, Nathan said softly. Only after I'd finally given up hope of ever finding you. The room grew quiet, heavy with everything unspoken. Mary asks about her father, Rachel finally said. I told her he had to leave before she was born, that he didn't know she existed. At least that part wasn't a lie, Nathan replied, his voice thick. She's amazing. Smart. Brave. I can already see that. She is, Rachel agreed, the edges of her expression softening. She deserves more than what I've been able to give her. Nathan walked to the window, gazing out over Portwell's skyline, a city he knew inside and out. I want to be in her life, Rachel. I've already lost 9 years. And what does that mean, exactly? She asked, sitting up straighter. Weekend visits to your penthouse? Holiday gifts? Or do you plan to take me to court for custody? He turned toward her, wounded. Is that really how you see me? That I'd rip her away from the only parent she's ever known? Before Rachel could respond, the door burst open. Lily stood there, her cheeks streaked with tears. Mary hovered behind her, clearly anxious. You're her dad, aren't you? Lily asked, her voice shaky. Mary's my sister. Nathan knelt down instantly, trying to meet her eyes. Lily, sweetheart, don't lie to me, she cried, backing away. I heard Mrs. Lang on the phone. She said Mr. Cole's daughter, the other one. Is it true? He looked at Rachel, silently asking for permission. She nodded slowly. Yes, he said gently. Mary is my daughter too. Your sister. Mary stepped forward, her face a mix of amazement and confusion. You're my dad. Rachel joined her daughter, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Yes, baby? This is your father. Mary's voice wavered. Why didn't you tell me? Why weren't you with us? He didn't know about you, Rachel said softly. That was my decision. A wrong one, Nathan added firmly but without anger. If I'd known about you, Mary, I would have been there. For every birthday. Every school play. Every scraped knee. Lily's teary expression shifted into curiosity. So, we're really sisters? Half-sisters, Rachel said carefully. Basically twins, Nathan added, trying to smile. You were born just 2 months apart. Is that why we look the same? Mary asked. Yes, Rachel replied. You both take after your father's side of the family, added a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see a tall, elegant woman with auburn hair standing just inside the office. Her tailored dress and composed demeanor suggested she'd come straight from a high-level meeting. Nathan, she said, clearly surprised. Your assistant said there was an emergency. Rachel visibly tensed. Danielle Morgan, she said under her breath. Of course. Lily's face lit up. Aunt Danielle, she ran to the woman. Look, I have a sister. Danielle's eyes flicked from Lily to Mary. Her smile was polite but didn't reach her eyes. I can see that, she said, then turned to Nathan. Perhaps we should reschedule our discussion about the Tokyo merger? Nathan's jaw clenched. Danielle is the CFO of Cole Enterprises, he explained to Rachel and Lily's godmother. How convenient, Rachel muttered. Danielle maintained her professional tone. Nothing about this appears convenient, she said coolly. The board meeting has been moved to tomorrow. I came to drop off the revised documents. She placed a sleek folder on his desk. I'll leave you to your reunion. As Danielle exited, the room felt colder. Heavier. I should take Mary home, Rachel said suddenly, standing. No, both girls shouted at once. Please, Mom, Mary begged. I just found out I have a sister and a dad. Don't make us go yet. Rachel looked from her daughter's hopeful face to Nathan's equally open expression. There's a lot we have to sort through, Nathan said gently. But maybe we can start with something simple. Dinner. All of us. 3 months later. Rachel stood in the kitchen of her new apartment, arranging a plate of cookies. Sunlight streamed through the windows that opened properly, lighting a space with no leaks in the ceiling, no cracked walls or cold drafts. Mom, Dad's here? Mary called from the living room, her voice full of excitement. Rachel still wasn't quite used to hearing her daughter say Dad so naturally, as if Nathan had always been there instead of just recently returning into their lives. The transition had gone more smoothly than she could have hoped. Mary had embraced both her father and Lily with an open heart and fearless energy. The doorbell rang, followed by Nathan's warm laugh and Lily's cheerful chatter. Their routine had become almost sacred. Nathan picked up both girls every Saturday morning for all kinds of adventures. Museums, horseback riding, art workshops, and brought them back for dinner at Rachel's place. Then he'd take Lily home. Tonight, though, was different. Tonight, they would tell the girls. Something smells incredible, Nathan said as he walked into the kitchen, holding a bouquet of fresh daisies. Rachel's favorite. Not roses. He remembered. Just lasagna, Rachel replied with a shy smile, taking the flowers. Nothing fancy. Your lasagna is fancy, he countered with a grin. They've been talking about it all week. In the living room, Mary showed Lily her latest school project, a 3D solar system made from glittery foam and wire hangers. They'd worked on it together using supplies Nathan had sent over. The girls had grown close quickly, their bond deepening with each passing week. Sometimes their identical expressions made Rachel pause, a shared glance, the same giggle, a mirrored head tilt. Danielle called today, Nathan said in a low voice as he filled water glasses. She accepted the London position. Rachel nodded, a wave of relief washing over her. Though Danielle had behaved professionally since that awkward office visit, her presence had always stirred something sharp beneath the surface. She'll make a great international director, Rachel said neutrally. Lily will miss her, though. We'll visit. London's not that far. Nathan placed the last glass on the table. Are you nervous? A little, Rachel admitted. It's a big step. If you're having second thoughts. I'm not, she interrupted. Are you? He gave her a look that erased all doubt. Not even one. Dinner passed with a cozy, easy rhythm. The girls took over the conversation, animatedly telling stories about school, rehearsals for their upcoming dance recital, and the mystery of who had been stealing extra crayons from their classroom. Rachel watched Nathan interact with Mary with genuine awe. He didn't just nod or pretend to listen, he really listened. He asked questions, laughed at her jokes, and treated her thoughts with the same attention he gave boardroom negotiations. After dinner, Nathan helped wash dishes, something Rachel was pretty sure he hadn't done much before reconnecting with her. When he handed her a dripping bowl with a wink, she knew it was time. "Girls," he said, drying his hands, his tone shifting just enough to get their attention. "We have something important to talk to you about." Mary and Lily plopped down on the ottoman cushions across from them with matching curious expressions, that now familiar mirror image that still stunned Rachel sometimes. "Are we in trouble?" Lily asked. "Not at all," Rachel said, sitting beside Nathan on the sofa. "It's actually good news." Nathan reached for Rachel's hand. The girls noticed, of course they noticed. "These last few months, your mom and I have been spending more time together," Nathan said. "Getting to know each other again." "We know," Mary said, rolling her eyes. "You talk on the phone every night." "You're not sneaky." Rachel blushed. "You're supposed to be asleep, Missy." "The point is," Nathan continued, "we've realized the feelings we had for each other never really went away." Lily's eyes lit up. "Are you getting married?" "Not yet," Nathan said with a smile. "But we are going to start dating officially." "You already do," Mary pointed out. "You went to that fancy restaurant last week." "And the symphony," Lily added helpfully. Rachel and Nathan exchanged a look of affectionate amusement. "Yes," Rachel said. "But now we're being open about it. We'll be spending more time together as a family." "Does that mean we'll live together?" Lily asked, her face full of hope. "Maybe one day," Nathan replied gently. "But we're taking things slow." "But there is one change coming soon," Rachel added. "Nathan asked us to move to a new place closer to him. So you girls can go to the same school and see each other more often." Mary's smile faltered. "But what about my friends? And Mrs. Jenkins next door? She watches me when you work late." Rachel's heart tightened. In all her excitement, she'd forgotten how much stability she'd fought to give Mary even when she had so little. Nathan leaned forward. "That's a great point, Mary. What if we find a place halfway between our homes? That way you can still see your friends on weekends. And Mrs. Jenkins can come visit," Rachel added. "Maybe even for dinner." Mary thought it over, forehead wrinkling in deep concentration, an expression straight from Nathan's playbook. "Would I have my own room?" she asked. "Of course," Nathan said. "You both would. But the rooms could be connected." Lily chimed in. "Like with a secret door." Mary's eyes lit up. "Like in the Chronicles of Narnia?" "Exactly like that," Nathan said, though Rachel suspected he had no clue what they were referencing. "Then, I think I'm okay with it," Mary decided. "As long as Mom's happy too." All eyes turned to Rachel. Her throat tightened. "I'm happy," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Happier than I've been in a very long time." Later that evening, after ice cream and a movie, the apartment had finally quieted. Lily was fast asleep on the pull-out sofa she now used for weekend stays. Mary was tucked into her own bed. Rachel and Nathan stood in the kitchen, rinsing the last of the dishes under warm water. "That went well," Nathan said, drying a bowl with a soft towel. "Better than I expected," Rachel agreed. "Though I think the secret door idea sealed the deal." Nathan chuckled. "I already texted my contractor." Rachel shook her head with a smile. "Of course you did." He set down the towel and turned to face her. The kitchen felt still, intimate. "Rachel," he said gently, "I know we said we'd take this slow. And I meant that. But there's something I've wanted to tell you." She met his eyes, heart-thudding. "I never stopped loving you," he said simply. "Even when I couldn't find you. Even when I married Catherine." "Nathan," she began, but he raised his hand slightly, asking her to let him finish. "I did love Catherine. She gave me Lily and she was kind. Good. But what I had with her, it wasn't what I've always had with you." Rachel stepped closer, placing her hands on his chest. "I tried to stop," she said quietly. "For years I told myself it was better this way. That we weren't meant to be. But watching you with Mary, seeing how easily you fit into her life." She looked up at him, no longer hiding anything. "I never stopped loving you either." When Nathan leaned down and kissed her, 9 years of silence and regret melted away. The kiss was full of memory and promise, a homecoming and a new beginning all at once. From the hallway, a muffled giggle broke the moment. They pulled apart to see two faces peeking around the corner, gap-toothed smiles glowing in the dim light. "I think that means we're officially a family," Nathan said, arms wide. The girls ran to them, hugging tight. In that circle of arms, Rachel realized something she hadn't dared to hope for in years. Sometimes, the most unexpected encounters, like a quiet girl asking a stranger why his daughter looked exactly like her, could lead to the most extraordinary kind of happiness. A family made whole again.